Now, I'm going to ask you if you know who this next person is, and anybody can answer this unless your name is George Danfilani. George Danfilani is not allowed to answer this question. Who is this? Thank you. Yeah. Still getting over, I think it was my first AGM, when I was introduced as a Manchester United fan. That was devastating. Ian Wright. I want to talk about love through Ian Wright. Ian Wright is, he played for Crystal Palace. Same amount of appearances for Crystal Palace as he had for Arsenal. Third highest goal scorer in club history with Crystal Palace. Second highest goal scorer in Arsenal history. 33 caps for England. When you play internationally, you get a physical cap. And so he played for England 33 times. Played for 15 years. Now he's a pundit. He works for BBC and ITV. He does a podcast called Stick to Football, which is I was actually listening to this morning on the drive in. And he's one of the greats for the club that I'm a big fan of. I've always been a big Arsenal fan, and Ian Wright is one of the greats. He was the leading scorer until Thierry Henry became the leading scorer of Arsenal, somebody I'm a little conflicted by because his handball ball is what kept Ireland out of the World Cup when he was playing for France. So I'm a bigger fan of Ian Wright. So there was a video that was a viral video that went around, and it was of Ian Wright. And he was doing a documentary for a show, and he was back at his old stadium at Highbury. It was 2010. And he was there, and he meets his teacher. And this video went viral. And I want to talk a little bit about love through Ian Wright in a couple of different ways.
Ian's still the highest scoring striker ever to play for Arsenal, and he owes a lot to the man who first taught him to kick a ball, his old school teacher, Sid Pigden.
As I haven't seen him for, 23, 24 years, and so he would now be expecting me to be 6 feet under, I would think. I don't actually think, he probably won't recognise me because he won't believe it's me. Hello, Ian. Long time no see.
Mr. Pigden. You're alive.
I'm alive, he says. How are you doing?
I can't believe it. Someone said you was dead.
As you see, I'm very patient, and I'm so glad you've done so well with yourself.
He was so supportive all the time. He kind of like had me as his kind of like special guy. I don't know what to say. God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You know, now I realise how important he was in my life. The first main imposing figure, male figure in my life who was trying to guide me on the right road.
How far are we going back now? 40 years,
Yeah,
30
easy,
years anyway.
Easy, 32 years.
Yeah.
So that video went viral, I mean, probably for obvious reasons. And it really speaks to the impact that, you know, a teacher, we've all got these examples, right, of you can probably think of your own. I'll give credit to the Minister of Education who came and spoke to, at the Code Conference with all the directors last week. And from kindergarten all the way up, he named all of the teachers. He actually just named them. Like and he talked about how important they were to him. And that's the sort of impact that we have. Those are the conditions we're trying to create. Those are the conditions I'm encouraging you to make sure that your team creates, because we do this work when we lead with love. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to take that video, and I really want you to stay with me because it's just audio this time, and to listen really closely to this next clip. Desert Island Discs is it's a show on BBC4. It's been on forever. Basically, the conceit of the show is that guests will come on, and there'd be the whole variety of different people that you could think of would come on to the show. And the conceit of the show is that you bring 8 tracks, 8 songs. That if you were stranded on a desert island, these are the songs that you'd bring with you. And then they ask you, you know, what would be one book that you would take and maybe one luxury. And that's the way in which the guest comes on and they talk about those songs that they love, and then that's how we get to know them through the interview. It's a fantastic show. For not to leave out my Liverpool fans in the room, but there's the song You'll Never Walk Alone, which is, all right, stop, put your hand down. That's, that actually came from Desert Island Discs. Did you know that? Bill Shankly, the very famous manager for Liverpool, was sent a copy of this song. It was a Rodgers and Hammerstein song, but it was done by Jerry and the Pacemakers. And then when he was on Desert Island Discs, it was his 8th track. And he said he put it on because his wife was listening to it a lot in the house. So when Bill Shankly said You'll Never Walk Alone, that was 1965, that turned into the anthem that is now when you go to Anfield, you go to a Liverpool match, they sing You'll Never Walk Alone. So I've got a clip here. It's about a 4-minute clip of Ian Wright. And he's talking a little bit about the viral video clip, but really more about the impact that Mr. Pigden had on him. What I want you to do is I want you to listen and maybe pick out a line or two that hit you. Maybe a line or two that for you, when you hear him say something, you think, that's landed with you in a way, okay? Like I might ask somebody to share, because there's a few things in this clip that I think that if we're gonna be talking about leading with love, we have to be thoughtful about who are those students in our class that are the hardest to love, and how are we loving them? And recognize the impact that we can make on all of our students, but sometimes those most difficult students. So, what are these things that are gonna land with you?
So Ian Wright, life at home for you when you were little was obviously incredibly difficult, but football, by the sounds of it, was an escape, it was a release.
It was the one thing that I was good at. I started playing at 8, and people used to say, he's really good, and then my brother would tease me about stuff, so then I'd practice my left foot, practice my right foot, practice my heading. I was so happy. I was so happy when I played.
So you went to Turnham School when you were about 8, and you said you had a very, very short attention span. What was going on with you?
I just found it very hard to focus on what they wanted me to do. If you had to write an essay, if you had to do maths or anything, the teacher would have to spend a lot more time because I didn't quite grasp it. My handwriting was really poor. I wasn't confident with my reading. And then I remember being outside the classroom, like for the 3rd occasion, and Mr. Pigden, when he walked past, I wouldn't even look at him. I was so scared of him because he was really strict. And I remember on this 3rd occasion, he looked at me, he looked down at me because I was 7. I was at the school the other day because I had to do his plaque. And he looked down at me. It felt like he was looking at me for an hour. I wouldn't look at him, but I could see his clothes. I remember he had his shoes were so shiny, he had turn-up trousers. His suit was always so immaculate. And then he looked at me and then he went into the classroom, said a couple of things to the teacher, this and that, and then he came back outside and he said, come with me. And that changed my life.
I mean, many castaways will sit where you are now, Ian, and reference individual teachers who changed their lives. But Mr. Pigden was truly important to you, to the extent that you dedicated your autobiography to him. How did he treat you? How did he engage with you and challenge you?
I know he loved me. I don't know why he chose me. I'm glad that he did. Once he came in and, everything was so much better. He was the one who taught me about Jimmy Greaves and making sure when you finish, Ian, when you're going through with the goalkeeper, pass the ball into the goal, look for the space, score beautiful goals. But he gave me responsibility. I used to collect the registers from the teachers. Then they made me milk monitor. I really liked that, and I looked
What was that like for the kid who couldn't sit still?
Well, it was really good. I just felt important. And then what he'd do, he'd put me back into the classroom, and then my writing got better. He wouldn't let me play football if he'd heard that I'd been naughty in class. He just gave me a sense of feeling like I had some use. You know, it was really weird because the viral video that went around. Where
Yes,
people
this
seemed-
is in 2010. You were reunited with him, and that video clip online's been viewed over 2 million times. You had thought that he had passed away. You'd been told incorrectly.
Couldn't find him. I was doing a television show, and there was a bit in it where I had to go back to the ground, and just sit in the director's box, and so I was sitting there in a reflective moment, and then he just came off my right shoulder. And the funny thing about it, Loz, was is that because he was like 3 or 4 steps higher than me, so the first thing I remember doing was I just ripped my hat off my head, just went like that. And then I said to him, "Oh my gosh, I thought you died, I thought you was dead." And he said, "Well, I'm very much alive, Ian," something like that. And then he said how proud he is of me. And then I hugged him, and because he was 3 or 4 steps up, I felt like I was like 7 again. We kept in touch from then on, and I remember him saying, because he was one of the youngest pilots in World War II. He was one of the pilots chosen to do the flyover of Buckingham Palace, right? So I remember him saying that he was more proud of the fact that I played for England than him flying over Buckingham Palace.
Oh, Ian.
I love that man.
You can see it in your face. In that moment, on that clip.
Gosh, man, I'm so sorry to people who are listening. I'm just turning into this bumbling, crying guy. But, it's...
They'll all be crying with you, Ian, don't worry.
When he said that, he changed my life just by recognizing, I don't know what it was when I was standing outside that classroom, that I needed more. And he gave it to me. And, to be able to unveil his plaque at Turnham Junior School was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, to be honest. It's the greatest man in the world.
I find that hard to listen to every time. I'm looking at you guys going, okay, you really don't know the kind of impact you're going to have. And the first image of Ian scoring a goal, being that big person people look up to, the football hero, but you listen to somebody who needed something, and it was that teacher that gave it to him. That is the potential impact that we have. What landed with you? Anyone? A line.
When I needed more, he gave it to me.
When I needed more, he gave it to me.
When he said that he felt love and that the teacher made him feel important, once he felt that sense of belonging and love, everything else fell in place.
Belonging and love, everything fell in place. He said, when I have some use, or I felt like I had some use.
When he said, I don't know why he chose me, but I'm glad he did.
I don't know why he chose me, but I'm glad he did. Those are great. I've got a couple. Oh, George.
When he was made milk monitor, and personal story, like as a school principal, I butted heads with groups of teachers who said the rewarding manager, and that hated it for school. So we should make
I had the whole idea that I felt important, that I had some use. When somebody says that, they think and what I'm hearing is that they thought that they didn't, and they're in our schools. So here's a couple for me. This is kind of those key themes of this, I think. It's about love, making sure that we all have purpose and that we feel that we have purpose. That sense of responsibility. We're talking about a kid who was out in the hallway, and when that was going on, I know that you were picturing those students in your school, and you know who they are. They're in all of our schools. And they all have that unbelievable potential and that sense of pride. So these are a couple ones that landed for me, somebody mentioned this, come with me and that changed my life. Sometimes it's all that needs, is us being able to recognize and give that somebody a chance. I think somebody said this one, I needed more and he gave it to me. He wasn't getting it in the hallway for the third time that day, but when somebody came and recognized something in him, I needed more and he gave it to me. And this next line is actually the reason why I decided to do this talk today on a bit of a theme of love and challenge us in that way to be leading with love, is that the one that gets me every time, I've listened to this a bunch of times, but every time, this is what gets me. What was it about him that you think made it, that was so special? I know that he loved me. Continuing with our theme of love, we lost one of the most influential leaders, not in the church, but in the world this past year. And Pope Francis took a distinctively pastoral relationship approach to his work and encouraged us to do so as well. He encouraged us, he was unafraid to say and do things that in some ways appeared to shake things up, both inside the church and outside of the church. A lot of people regard him as a reformer, as someone who pushed the church. But it's important to keep in mind that Pope Francis prioritized relationships. He prioritized presence. And he prioritized a pastoral approach to leadership. And that's how we're leading with love. We often get caught up in rules. And I said at the beginning, we were talking about safe schools, that rules and processes, these things are important. We're not breaking the rules, we're following the rules. And rules, they're important. It's the same as parenting. The rules, but they're not as important as love. Like when we're implementing rules, when we're disciplining, our students still need to know that we love them. So I'm not telling you to ignore the rules. Rules are important. But I am telling you that rules are not more important than people. Pope Francis talked a lot about, the really big thing he introduced to the church was that concept of synodality. So that's creating a culture of listening. And that is really listening to others, getting out of our entrenched positions into the idea of listening to different perspectives and to experiences to better understand one another, and authentic relationships. And I would argue that authentic leadership requires listening. I think, other than what you would see with me right now talking for 45 minutes, I think listening is probably my number one indicator of intelligence. Somebody who's really a person who is a listener. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking. Because listening requires humility. Now, Pope Francis, a lot of people think that he changed or he pushed the church, but keep in mind, he didn't change any rules. It was never about the rules, it was about people. So it was about being in relationship with other people, really Francis was the perfect example of getting into the margins, connecting with those that were on the outside. So I want to encourage us to be this type of leaders, the type of leaders who know their team, who know their staff, who know their kids. Don't be the leader who really knows policy as much as you're the leader who leads people. You would never want to finish your tenure as a principal of a school and just say, wow, he was a great principal. He really knew the rules. He was an excellent principal. Nobody could quote policy like that principal. That's not how you want to lead. You want to be remembered. You want to be the principal that says, she was an amazing principal. She really knew every student. She was an awesome principal. She loved the kids. That's how we want to be remembered. Quick story about that. So this is a picture of, it's called Bethany Kids Hospital. So I was on the board of directors for Bethany Kids Hospital for 10 years. Bethany Kids Hospital is a mission hospital, a Christian mission hospital. It's about an hour outside of Nairobi in Kajabi, Kenya. And the focus of the hospital was originally to help support, I keep saying students, but children born with hydrocephalus or spina bifida. And the idea is that when we were able to provide some of the surgery to change the trajectory of their lives, so I was involved with them for about 10 years. It turned into then we would have then kids coming from conflict zones or results of injuries in that way, but mostly we would be doing infant surgeries for kids, hydrocephalus, spina bifida, and conflict or injury. So what would happen is a mother would come to the hospital and they would know about the work we were doing at Bethany, and we would assess what the needs were and perform surgery, and there would be care that would come after, and the mothers would be in the rooms with the kids. So there'd be a mother in hospital gowns as well, in a bed with their child. So part of recovery, there'd be rooms that would be as small as 4 beds, so 4 mothers and 4 children, and as big as maybe 10, 15, maybe even a room with 20 beds as we kind of walked around the hospital in recovery. So one day I'm there and I was doing kind of rounds with the chaplain. So the chaplain's name is Mercy. And the CEO at the time of the hospital was named Justice Moretti. So we had Justice and Mercy at Bethany Kids, true. So we're going around the rooms, and what we would do is it was just kind of check in. How's the recovery going? How are you feeling? Talking to the mothers and checking out the kids. And then Grace, what she would do is when we were kind of done checking in with everyone, she would lead prayer. So we would just pray for recovery, pray for the mothers, pray for the children, and a full recovery when they went back, and that was kind of normal. Now we had a lot, and increasing over the years, a lot of Somali families, because there was the Dadaab refugee camp was up near the Somali border, and a lot of folks would hear about what was happening at Bethany, that serving their kids, they'd come down. And most, if not all, that would come from that area would be Muslim. And most, if not all, in my experience, and I was there a lot, they'd never actually met a Christian before coming to Bethany. And as I said, it's a Christian mission hospital. So we would go into some of the rooms and we do what we do, and then Grace would go to pray. And I would notice that when Grace would start to pray, some of the mothers would start talking across the room at each other when Grace was Mercy was trying to pray. And in another room, they'd pick up their phone or get on the phone, and it was almost felt like, to me as an outsider, felt kind of like disrupting prayer. And this happened in a few different rooms that we were in, and I asked Mercy about it in the hallway, and I said, how do you manage that? What do you think about that idea that, we're doing this work and we're trying to engage in prayer and blah, blah, blah. And Mercy said, Brendan, you have to remember that most of the mothers, most of the families that we're serving here have never met a Christian before. They might have a different idea of what Christians are. But the key is that we are not trying to evangelize to them with words. We're trying to make sure that when they leave us, when they go back to where they're from, they simply say the Christians loved me, loved us, and they cared for my child. And for me, that was really profound, because it's not really what we say. It's about we are showing our profound acts of service, love, and leadership just by serving other people. And so I kind of changed how I went into the rooms then to meet with them after, but I always remember that story as being, we want them to go back and say that the Christians loved us and they cared for my child. That's a pretty simple mandate. I'm getting to the end here, but I love this quote because sometimes we think about the work that we do, we have to do these big things. And really, it's not about doing great deeds, but it's all about small deeds done with great love. It's about Mr. Pigden coming up to Ian in the hallway just saying, come with me. And that's how it starts. And that's how someone leads to greatness. There's a quote from John Bosco. I was with Cardinal Leo last week. He gave me this quote. I told him a little bit what I was going to be talking about. And he said, use this quote from John Bosco. John Bosco said, children need to be loved, but more importantly, they need to know that they are loved. So I was thinking about, I was at a school last year, elementary school, And I won't say who it was. She's in the room. And I was doing an assembly. I was part of an assembly. And this principal had this child in her arms the whole time, whole assembly, just like a mother would hold their child. And I knew that that was a child that might be in a difficult situation, or might be that child that other people would think would be disruptive. She held him like she would hold her own child the entire time. Do you think that that child knew that they were loved? I was in a secondary school last year, second-year principal. We were walking the hallways, and she knew every student's name. She asked them about how's your mother? Did that go well? What happened with your brother here? Asking them, she knew everybody. I couldn't believe it. I think when I was a principal for 5 years at one school, I was proud that I knew every student's name. She'd been there for 2 years. I was probably there in March, so it was probably a year and a half. She knew every student's name. Do you think that those kids knew that they were loved? That's the work that we're called to do. That's what I'm asking us to do, because our work is not about scaling great heights. It's not about making new rules or changing ones that exist. It's about, our role is to lead with love. If you love the work that you do, everyone will know it. The converse is, if you don't love the work that you do, everyone will know it too. So I started today with, that kind of the brass tacks about, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. I want to talk about the situation with supervision and our way forward. I want to be really clear about our budget. Make sure that everyone's on the same page, has a real good idea where we are. But the second half really is about knowing all of these things. We can do all of what I talked about regardless of what our situation is and regardless of what our budget is, because we have who we need to create the conditions for us to have schools in which everyone feels loved, everyone feels welcome, everyone feels included. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. Everyone is welcome in our schools and included in our schools. We have the ultimate example of the incarnation of love in the person of Jesus. That's what makes us different as a Catholic school. We have that ultimate example of how we're supposed to be in the margins. Who are those people that are underserved? How are we leading in that way that everyone knows that we're leading with love? So when we live and we lead this way, we know that we will be creating the conditions where everyone feels welcome. We know that when we create those conditions in that trinity that I talked about of our multi-year strategic plan, that our students have the greatest opportunity for success as a result. Students are way more likely to thrive in that environment. Ian Wright was more likely to thrive once he knew he was seen and he was valued and he had some use. So that's what I want to encourage us this year. The setup at the beginning from Shauna and Nicole was to set the vision for the year. And I think if we can come close to accomplishing that sort of idea in every single one of our buildings and our departments and the work that we do, I think we're going a long way toward continuing our mission as being beacons of Catholic education and making sure that every student in our schools and the support that we have from the business side and the academic side, every student feels safe, loved, and included in our schools. So God bless everyone. I want to wish you a wonderful school year. Thank you.